Now, Senator Clinton, this is where there is a real choice in this primary. So you need to understand what the choice is before you go to the polls on Tuesday. And you need to be able to describe it to your friends and your neighbors. Senator Clinton is a capable, smart, tenacious person. She has represented her state of New York very capably. But Senator Clinton essentially has one argument for why she should be elected, and that is she's been in Washington for a very long time, and she understands how Washington works. Her basic argument is that we can't change the say anything, do anything, special interest-driven politics of Washington. That's just the way the game is played, and so you might as well have a president who knows how to play the game. That's her argument. I mean, she's taken more money from lobbyists and special interests than any other candidate, Democrat or Republican, and when she was questioned on it, she says, well, they represent real people. Now, I don't know. Maybe you've got lobbyists representing you in Washington, but I don't think so. So if you don't think it's even a problem, what's the likelihood that you're going to put a stop to it? She's taken different positions at different times on issues like trade and war, fundamental issues, where you can't be, for NAFTA when your husband's campaigning for it, and then when you're campaigning for president, suddenly you were against NAFTA the whole time. You can't be for the war when it's popular, and then when you find out it's unpopular, you say, well, I wasn't voting for the war, I was voting for diplomacy. You can't say you're going to bring about change and then employ the exact same tactics that were used against you when you were in the White House, where your campaign brags about taking the kitchen sink out and throwing the china at it, the buffet table, and that's not change. So, look, Senator Clinton will be vastly better than George Bush would be, but that's a very low bar. That's not good enough. Her argument is that she knows how to play the game better, but we don't need somebody who knows how to play the game better. We need somebody to put an end to the game playing. That's what I'm going to do. That's why I'm running for president. I don't believe we can keep on taking lobbyist money and PAC money and think we're going to change the system. That's why I don't take a dime from lobbyists. I don't take a dime from PACs. And that's why when I'm president of the United States, they won't have funded my campaign, they will not run our White House, and they will not drown out the voices of the American people when I'm president of the United States. Not the drug lobbyists, not the insurance lobbyists, not the oil lobbyists, not the HMO lobbyists, none of them. I'll be accountable to you. I don't think we can change Washington by just telling the American people what we think they want to hear. That's why when I said the realistic way to solve our energy crisis, to raise fuel efficiency standards on cars, I didn't go in front of some environmental group. I went to Detroit in front of the automakers where it's not popular. And I got to admit, none of them clapped. But that's okay. Same reason when I said we need a middle-class tax cut and not give tax cuts to folks who don't need them and weren't even asking for them. I didn't do it in front of a union hall. I know I could get cheers there. I went to Wall Street in front of the CEOs, and they were kind of quiet, but that's okay. They needed to hear about the idea of shared prosperity. That's what you need to bring about change, not just somebody who's going to tell you what they think you want to hear, but somebody who will tell you what you need to hear. That's what we need from the next president of the United States of America. I understand this. The challenges we face are going to be hard. They're not going to be easy. We're not going to be able to prevent every job from leaving because we now live in a global economy. And that's why when I talk about trade, I say we should welcome trade. We are ready to compete with anybody on earth. But what we do need is a president in the White House who will not just think about Wall Street, but will think about Main Street, who will have labor standards and environmental standards and safety standards so that our workers aren't being undermined and our children aren't chewing on toys with lead paint on them, because we've got a president who's actually looking out not just for the corporate bottom line, but for your bottom line. That's the kind of president you need. We won't be able to solve our energy crisis right away, but we can solve it 20 years from now. We can look back and say, this is the moment that we started getting serious, where we created an Apollo project for clean and renewable energies, where we invested billions of dollars, like I proposed, into solar and wind and biodiesel, so that we've got millions of new jobs making windmills and solar panels and making buildings energy efficient. Now's the time where we can say we made a decision to reinvest in our infrastructure. You look at this beautiful, magnificent building. So many of our great buildings, our great institutions, they were built during the 30s. We haven't invested in the infrastructure that we need so that when our children look back, they'll say, look what they left behind for us. We need to rebuild our roads and our bridges, our railways. But we also need to rebuild our broadband lines to stitch the entire country together on the digital superhighway. We've got to make sure that we're investing in research and science and development so that we are creating the new discoveries today that will generate jobs and prosperity for tomorrow. We've got to make sure that every child gets the best education this country has to offer, from the day that child is born to the day that child graduates from college, which means investing in early childhood education and paying our teachers higher salaries and giving them more support and making sure college is affordable for every young person. I'm going to give you a $4,000 tuition credit every student every year in exchange for community service. We'll invest in you. You invest in America. Together we can march this country forward. That's the kind of vision I want to bring to the White House over the next 8 years. So we're gonna have to work hard. It's going to be challenging, but if we're having an honest conversation, if we know what those challenges are, if yes, we understand there will be some sacrifices involved. There's nothing we can't do. There's nothing we can't accomplish. If we are unified across racial and regional and religious lines, there's nothing we can't accomplish. I don't believe we can bring about change if we don't declare independence from the same politics that exploits our differences and feeds on the petty and the trivial and the distractions, the fake controversies, where you keep track of how many points you score on your opponent instead of how many problems you solve for the American people. That may make good television, it may make for good ratings, but it's not helping people who are trying to get health care for their families. It's not bringing those troops home from Iraq. Listen, I don't mind this kind of silly season politics. I'm accustomed to it. I'm from Chicago. I know politics. Politics ain't beanbag. That's what they say in Chicago. We know how to mix it up. We know how to throw some elbows. I'm skinny, but I'm tough. But the problem with this kind of politics, it has nothing to do with my feelings. It has to do with the fact that we don't get anything done. The problem is that we can't unify the country so that we have a mandate for change, so that the American people are enlisted around a health care plan that provides coverage for every single American and emphasizes prevention, so that we have a mandate to actually increase energy efficiency so that we have a mandate to make sure that we have a foreign policy that not only keeps us safe, but restores our standing in the world. You know, that requires all of us, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, young, old, rich, poor, black, gay, straight, all of us coming together, insisting on the perfectibility of our union. That's what this campaign's been about. Look at this crowd all around you. We have been creating a movement to unify this country, and we're not going to stop until we start seeing that same kind of attitude in Washington.